Well, undoubtedly it's the hottest day of the year so far. Perfect weather for an afternoon drive in an open top 911. The car in question today is a 992 Targa. So is it any good, and is it better than the 991 Targa before it? Let's get that roof down and find out, shall we? We've covered the historical evolution of the 911 Targa in my previous video, haven't we, where I revealed the Targa 4S in 992 form. But I feel some context is due first from a driving point of view. That's because we're now in the third generation of this new 911 Targa, designed by Michael Mauer and Grant Larson, of course, bringing back the classic Targa design, albeit with some modern kinetics. Now, I've said all along that the Targa bucks the trend in terms of the 991 Gen 1 versus Gen 2 engine debate. The reason is, generally speaking, I prefer the 991 Gen 1 engine, that beautiful, rasping, naturally aspirated flat six. It's a much better soundtrack to it, much better engagement as well in terms of throttle response. The Targa is a heavy beast, isn't it? So in terms of 991, the Gen 2 engine, the turbocharged engine, for all its pitfalls in terms of throttle response, ability to rev out, noise of course, kind of doesn't matter, because the 991 Targa needs that extra torque from the turbocharged engine in order to really get it moving. So, although the 991 Gen 1 is, in my opinion, the better generation generally in terms of engine, in terms of Targa, the Gen 2 is the one to go for. That means this car has some serious impressing to do if you want to spend that extra lump of money to have the Targa in 992 form. What have we got then with 992 form? Well, it's quite straightforward, to be honest with you. As I mentioned, it's that classic 991 design in terms of the roof. There are some refinements in terms of more powerful actuators to move the roof system. There's also now a use of magnesium for the roof frame in order for it to be lighter. Now, Porsche says that means that the kinetics of the roof system in the 992 are quicker than the 991. That's the other thing to pick up on as well. You have to be stationary in the 992, like the 991, because that rear glass clamshell, as it's called, goes back over the rear clusters. You cannot operate the roof system in the 992 Targa, just like the 991, while the 911 is in motion. You have to be sat still. And believe me, when it comes to playing traffic light roulette in terms of getting that roof system up or down, 19 seconds is a very long time indeed. But really, the Targa is a boulevard cruiser. The whole point really is to get that roof down and leave it. Enjoy everything that the Targa gives you, which is open top motoring, a great connection with the outdoors, a beautiful sound of the flat six working hard behind you. The other standout point of note in terms of practicality from the 991 side of things was, as beautiful as this reworked modern Targa design is, and it is absolutely beautiful, to my mind, the best looking 911, it's wind noise. It's fine below 40 mile an hour, and I'm doing dead on 40 now, but anything above that, the wind noise did become a problem. It was something I was really hoping the 992 would fix, but it doesn't appear to have been able to do so. Like the 991, there is a windbreaker bar up top, and it definitely does help. So I'm doing 55 mile an hour now. I'm hoping the microphones pick up quite savage wind buffeting. Pop the bar up, which is just a press down, and it does eliminate that deep kind of bassy thrumming buffeting noise. However, there is still a lot of wind noise in this cabin. I'm currently doing 49 mile an hour as well. I wouldn't want to do 70 therefore with the roof down. Yes, it does feel a heavy car as well, it has to be said. The additional punch from this turbocharged 982 Evo engine certainly helps propelling it up the road, and again, that's where turbocharging really does come to the rescue of the Targa. And you do feel that weight in the corners as well, it has to be said. The Targa is a lot more lumpy than the coupe or even the cabriolet. To hold that as a valid criticism against the Targa though is kind of unfair. The Targa is a boulevard cruiser, and to that end a big win is in its ride. I'm so pleased to say that the chassis of the 992 Targa is as accomplished as that of its coupe and cabriolet relation. We've spoken before about how the additional revisions to the 992's ride in terms of those helper springs really has helped polish the ride of the 911 in 992 form. It's leaps and bounds over the 991 generation. The cabriolet in particular is an absolute revelation in terms of it being a heavier proposition. It really does ride incredibly well. I didn't feel that kind of correlated into 992 Turbo S Cabriolet, guys. That car really was just too heavy, and it really was too lumpy and bumpy on British roads. I'll put a link here to that video so you can see it. So I was keen to work out, where does the Targa fall? Is it a positive experience like the Cabriolet and being nice and polished, or was it not so good like the Turbo S Cabriolet, whereby it's just too heavy and the ride was too lumpy and bumpy? Well, it's the former. I'm so pleased to say that the Targa rides wonderfully. As I said, it's a boulevard cruiser. It's all about how it kind of takes those low speed bumps. It rides so well over it. It's not crashy like arguably it was in the 991 Gen 1 Targa. It's probably, in terms of ride comfort and quality, it's the best modern Targa without a shadow of a doubt. The body isn't as taut as a coupe. You do really feel that through the turn. But again, it's a boulevard cruiser, isn't it? The whole idea of this 911 is to look beautiful and have that point and squirt performance on tap when you need it. And it really does have it. I think I'm going to have to put the roof up. See if this works. Kind of caught out the roadside, but I want to talk to you on the motorway. Struggling at 50, we've got no hope of doing it at 70. Right, real world test. So I didn't time that now. I perhaps should have done that on the Sport Chrono clock, but I'm going to time that retrospective when I'm editing this video, or Damien and I are editing this video a little bit later, and we'll see how long that took, and we'll see if it beats the 19 seconds, quoted by Porsche for this, but the real world 19 seconds that it took the 991's roof mechanism to work. At least I can talk to you in some decorum now. Have to say, even with the roof up, that sounds spectacular. Like the 992 Cabriolet as well, tyre noise is fairly minimal. Again, that's kind of the Achilles heel, isn't it, of the 911 generally. It's because the engine's in the back. Got those big wide tyres to contend with, and it does mean rolling tyre noise. Well, you don't quite get that with 992s generally. And again, that has transcended over into the 992 Targa. With the roof up, rolling tyre noise is very palatable. So the chassis is a big win on the Targa, as I said. The engine, well, it's exactly the same as the coupe and the cabriolet. There's not too much more to report. 450 peak horsepower, 530 newton meters torque in 4S mode like this. Don't forget, all Targas are all-wheel drive. There's just an extra modicum of lethargy just by virtue of the fact that, oh, it's a heavy beast, isn't it? The steering is another huge win for the 992 generation. That is as present on the Targa. There's a lot more feel to the front end now. As we know from previous videos, the front end is essentially closer to a GT3 these days. And again, it just helps with a little bit more feel and feedback through the wheel, but also, most notably, is turning. It does feel sharper. It doesn't feel as sharp as a coupe at the nose, but what I will say is it's definitely improved over the 991 Targa. The Targa, as I've said before in my magazine writing and on other platforms, really is a lifestyle car, isn't it? It really is quite good at doing absolutely everything. Compared to the rest of the 911 range, for example the coupe, you might have to sacrifice just in terms of chassis dynamics and in giving a real taut, tight drive. But what it does give you is really the best of everything. The ability to put that roof down, enjoy the elements, to ride in absolute comfort and have plenty of power on tap when called upon. Is the 992 Targa an improvement over the 991 and enough for it to be worth that additional price premium? Well, yes, essentially. While some of those inherent Targa problems are still there, like the wind buffeting, the reality is that's always been a feature of the 911 Targa, classic or modern. Yes, it has improved in terms of dynamically, the steering is a leap on, ride comfort is a lot better as well. However, there's a 992 question to be answered as well here, isn't there? So there we have it then. That is the 992 Targa in 4S trim. Is it better than the Cabriolet? Well, it's a different car. In the Cabriolet, I would say, arguably, it's a little bit more practical, just in terms of the fact that the roof is operable while the car is still moving. I'd also say it's a little bit quieter as well from inside the cabin, particularly if you want to have a conversation with your passenger with the roof down. If, however, you're after a beautiful boulevard cruiser, which this is, that melds that timeless, classic 911 Targa design within the framework of a modern 911, well, the Targa's for you.